How many of you actually spend time listening to players other than pianists? Because here in the Jazz Bento YouTube channel, we have typically focused on piano players and analyzing what they do and how they play, and we can add that to our playing. But in today's live stream, we're going to depart from that a little bit, and we're going to take a look at the music of Miles Davis. Now, I totally get that most of you would be familiar with Miles, but how many of you actually stopped to listen to his playing and analyze it, and some of the things that you learned you can add to your own piano playing? So that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. We're going to take a look at his 1957, and I realize that's a long time ago for many of us, but 1957, he brought out an album called Roundabout Midnight, which was a couple of years before the iconic album, which of course everybody probably has a copy of it, called Kind of Blue. That was 1959. So he was already starting to develop this cool jazz sound. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the whole Birth of the Cool thing, but it was basically minimalist playing, getting away from the beboppers and the fast, really intricate blowing lines, people like Charlie Parker and Bud Powell and that whole gang. And he's basically trying to develop a sound which was more welcome into the dining room versus the concert hall. Just a quick shout out to everybody who's here early: Ben and Rich, Lisa, Shay, and Jean-Pierre, welcome. Alan, David, Peter, good to see you all. As always, without you, these Saturday sessions would not be anything. So thanks for taking the time out of your busy lives to spend a little more than an hour with us today. One of the things that I am going to do is perform Miles's complete solo from that album on the tune Bye Blackbird. So I basically transcribed the solo, I've written it out, and I put together a backing track. So this is not something that we're used to here on the Saturday live streams. I'm going to add a little bit more technical stuff to this presentation. And if you were here last week, you know that technical is not totally my thing. And so we'll see how that goes. I mean, there are definitely some glitches with the backing track as OBS takes it and pushes it into YouTube. There's some latency issues, and there's some other things that, you know, you're just going to have to forgive me for those things. It's not going to be perfect audio. I guarantee you, though, the backing track, the one that I hear in my headphones, is going to be perfect audio. I'm going to actually give you today's PDF sheet music link. I'm going to throw it into the chat now and pin it to the top so that you can access that throughout the presentation. I know that last week we had some challenges with the download link. I tested it a couple of ways this week, and I think it's working fine, so you can check that. And also, as we go through today, as always, you're my feedback about sound. So if you can't hear me clearly, or the piano sounds whatever, if the levels aren't correct, maybe you could let me know. I like to also hear that the levels are good. So if you don't have obviously anything bad to say, maybe you could just say, shout out, hey, Paul, sounds good to me. And that is really helpful for me, because I just can't hear what's on your end. All right. I'm going to throw up the sheet music on your screen, and I'm basically going to play through the entire transcription of Bye Blackbird. Now, you can see that it's just after the introduction, and this is a very iconic introduction, which I will play, and I've actually programmed that into the backing track. But if you take a look at the line starting at A section, it's just a single staff. That's because that's Miles Davis's performance and solo. So we're going to go through the whole thing. The challenge with this is not just going to be the audio, but also I have to scroll the thing while I'm playing to kind of at least show you what's being done. So I'm basically going to just, whenever I get the chance, when there's a break, I'm just going to scroll the screen like that, and hopefully that'll work out for us. All right, let me shut the microphone off. You can go grab the free sheet music, and I will start this momentarily. All right, so there you go. There's the complete Miles Davis solo. Now, I would like to hear from you a couple of things. Number one, that the sound and the mix was okay. It didn't go too far away from the original backing track. In other words, I don't know, start clicking or doing weird things, and that it was, you know, virtually okay. I would like to hear that. The second thing is, what did you hear from this solo? I mean, from my perspective, definitely very cool in terms of Miles's ability to leave a lot of space. And that was good because, of course, if there was a lot of notes in there, it would be difficult for me to scroll the thing while I'm playing. And just a quick shout out to those who have said hi in the chat, Serge and Alan and Gloria and Philip. Welcome, everybody. Miles lives. That's a nice comment. Thank you. Intro by Red Garland. I'm actually not sure about that. I would have to check that out. But it's definitely from the album Round About Midnight. And yeah, I'll have to check that out. So, Alan says sound is good. That's good. And Alan says, what I heard, targeting chord tones. Absolutely. I think the other thing about Miles is Miles had an interesting take on chord tones. He would basically target a lot of the time the sixth of the chord. So you'll notice that when he was doing like the break, you know, it's basically like these four notes of F's of an F chord. Okay, kind of gave it that hollow sound. So D, E, G, and E. But a lot of times, like the sixth of the chord, he spent a lot of time there. And I think that's interesting. We're going to actually take a look at the solo itself and just kind of look at some of the things that we can apply to our own playing. And for those of you that are joining us now, thanks for coming. Let me scroll to the A section here, which is pretty much at the top of your screen right now. You'll notice that there's little X's. Do you see in the second bar of A, there's like this X at the bottom? Those are like on the trumpet. We can't do that on the piano, obviously. But basically what he's doing is he's ghosting a note. He's kind of playing sort of the note, but it's somewhere in between. So it kind of sounds like this. Like it's really, really quiet. And I think we can try to emulate those things on the piano when we play. So the way that I would do that is you can see that it's clearly off the beat, which is typically where the accents usually are. It'd be like, right? The accent is on the lower note, but in Miles's case, he's like accenting the chord tones. You know, just ghosting that bottom note, which is kind of interesting. So let's play it from A section. Space. So not a lot in there, obviously. He's just trying to play the melody, but listen to the way that he plays around with it. One more time from B section. So the melody would typically be like this. But Miles, he's kind of like, he's just toying around with it a little bit. Here he's not even playing the melody. Not doing that. He's just playing the G chord, the G note. Now, C section, the way that it starts off, is something that I think you should get used to as a piano player. We typically stick to eighth notes and we kind of play on the beat. So if we're playing the melody there, it was like, right? But Miles, he kind of lays back on it. So think of it like 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, dun, 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 right? It's like this kind of like slick syncopation, if you will, from C. Now, I think as he's playing that bar, where did I go? Here. I think as he's playing these two bars here, I don't know. It's a really weird kind of melody, and that's pretty typical of Miles when he doesn't actually know, I think, where he's going. So, and I might take some musical criticism from people, say, hey, Miles always knew where he was going. I don't know about that. We'll talk about a note coming up that is like way out there. But anyway, let's go back. Like, it's just this kind of like strange line. It's certainly not melody, which would be this. Right? It's just kind of wafting. It's even hard to read. Like that line there. If you take a look at D section, so we're on the melody at D. Here. And then we're going to the solo section, so he gets really high. And he just holds that note. Now, we can't do that. Obviously, on the trumpet, he can just blow more air through the horn. But we're up here, and then he's got the solo rate. So there's that sort of like, right, ending on the sixth of the chord. That's very typical of Miles. He did that a lot in the Kind of Blue album, kind of hanging around the 6th or the 13th. And this is where time comes in. So let's take a look at that. So on E section, and I think this is a really good thing for piano players to start solos. All he's doing is he's taking this chord, which is a D minor ninth chord, and he's just playing the chord. So let's, and that's all the way through the first 4 or 5 bars of E. He's just playing this chord, D minor 9, over an F chord. And I think as just a musical idea, it's just a great way of playing over a 1-6-2-5 by just using the 6 minor 9 chord. So if this is the key of F, right? It's the 6th of an F in the scale, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then just this minor 9. And he's using that over the entire changes. Right? Like he's just making it simple. And I think we tend to complicate things a lot. Miles was just like, hey man, I'm just going to play what I'm going to play, and I'm going to make it as simple as I can. And then this note. Now, when I first heard that in the recording, so what we have here is a B natural. Now, why is that so strange? Because in the key of F, we've got a B flat in the key of F. How many of you can see that? And then he just blows this B natural, which is obviously makes a tritone against the root of the chord, not the chord, root of the key, on an A minor chord. It could be a minor ninth, but it's still really out there because it doesn't conform to what normal people would play. But like Miles said, there are no wrong notes. So he would play a note like that and then he'd resolve it to this note. So let's play the whole line and you'll see how that sticks out. has the guts to do stuff like that? Only Miles, right? Just out of the blue, and you know, stay on it. Not like, he didn't use it as a passing note. He's like, this is the right note, and I don't care what anybody thinks. I mean, so let's just scroll a little bit. So we're in F section, sorry, too far. Yeah, so the top line on your page. Let's check in with a couple of comments. Ben says, Bye Blackbird was my clarinet solo feature with a big band recorded a few years ago. The leader said to me, I want you to play tenor sax. I suggested clarinet instead. He agreed. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think it would sound great on clarinet, especially if you're playing like Miles. Peter says, I got the free PDF and the discounted bundle. Thank you, Paul. This is great. You are very welcome. Peter, you are my number one. I'm your biggest fan because, you know, you're creating a whole like Paul Tobey arsenal of sheet music, and I really appreciate that. So thank you. All right. And he's basically referring to an email that I'm going to send everybody after you download the sheet music. All right. Let's get back to it. Any questions you have about this? I'm kind of an open book. If you want to make some comments, that's great. I prefer questions like, why did he do this? But anyway, we're in F section. G minor. Now, on a trumpet, that sounds really cool. Piano, I don't know. It's not the greatest line. And then he's got this, he can bend notes on the trumpet. So he's bending from the G sharp to the A. He's not actually playing G sharp, but for us, we have to do this. Yeah, nothing too much there. Let's start on G, at G. Yeah, it's a little weird, right? You gotta play the F on 2. Now that's more bebop right there. And then he finally plays a line. And it's just basically an A flat major chord, but he ends on a D natural, which is really strange considering it's a D flat 7 chord, but I'm sure he's thinking D flat 7 flat 9. And then C, and then H. Kind of a cool line at H. Again, he's really sticking to just the F chord. It's actually an F major chord. Right? And there's those ghost notes at the bottom there on the G minor chord. Nothing too new there. Let's play J. And here's a line I like. So this is blues. Now, that's interesting. If you take a look at this G natural down here, I'll just kind of highlight that for a second. So in an F blues scale, that G sharp or A flat is part of the scale. It's like the flat, is the sharp 9 of an F blues scale. So listen to the line. That is so typical bebop. I would definitely, if there's one line you want to learn, it's that one. Now this, I would like to show you that. So let's just run a 1-6-2-5 in F. Listen to this. So that's a bebop line that was kind of invented by somebody. I'm not exactly sure who, but basically what you're doing is you're hitting the chord tones of the F chord in sequence by coming to them from the scale. We're not going outside the scale. You could do this, but it sounds a little weird. But you want to come from the scale, and you want to approach the chord tone from the scale. Right? It's just a really, really nice line. So I would practice that, right? And that's what he's done here. He's combined it, this bebop line with this beginning, right? Sorry. Really nice. So definitely take a look at that. K section. Going to the A half diminished seventh chord. Interesting, on an E7 chord, he's playing the natural 4, which is really interesting. It's not even a sharp 11. Sharp 11 would be here, but it's like kind of really out there. But it is in the key of F, the third of F, so maybe that's what he's still thinking. And this is just, right, we're just coming down to the D there. And then there's that D flat chord again, or the D flat scale. Right? Got to make sure I'm hitting the right note. So cool. I mean, in context, it sounds good, but if you're just playing it, maybe not so much. Let's play the whole line. One more time from the second line. Ending on the sharp 9 of C7, and then L. Blues. There's that line again, right? Coming down, that's, right? Kind of the same line as before, just a little bit different. Now this is definitely bebop here. At L, we're going from the A half diminished 7th to the D7 chord. You've heard that before, right? If you're playing an A half diminished chord, getting down to the third of the chord and then going up somehow to get to the flat 9 of D7. Right? That's typical bebop. Right? But he's just going right from the third of the chord to the flat 9. would definitely recommend you learning the solo. You don't necessarily have to memorize it, but like me, just read the sheet music, play along with the backing track. I think it's definitely good practice to do that. Let's check in with everybody and see how we're doing here. Whoa, lots of comments from Charlie. Charlie says, how can I download the free music? The link is at the top of the chat, Charlie. So it started at 11 a.m., but if you look at the chat, it's pinned right to the top, the free sheet music link. I'll post it in again. And there you go. There it is one more time in the chat. You're welcome, Charlie. My pleasure. Open Studio is a great resource. Well, that's great. You want to promote other channels? That's good. Open Studio did their job, so that's good. Intro was definitely Red Garland. Thank you for that comment. Rich says that flat sixth note really made a statement, and his layback rhythm just before Coltrane would come in and share the melody to pieces. Shred the melody to pieces. Yeah, absolutely. That's what Coltrane did. He would follow up. He would sweep up after Miles and say, hey, Miles, you just played far too few notes for me. And Coltrane would just rip one, which is cool. One of the things that I did want to talk about today, and I think I'll just take the sheet music off your screen for now because it's a little distracting. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was just this sort of feel of the tune. It's 120 beats per minute. So if you actually listen to the backing track one more time. It's clearly slow swing. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of the feel, and it's really laid back, especially in the melody. So if I were you, I would definitely run a bass line like we talked about last week, in which you're playing halftime feel. You can swing it at the bridge if you wanted to. And back to halftime feel. And you could even, rather than starting straight ahead swing at the solo section, you could stick out with the halftime feel for a little bit until you kind of got into it. Let's try that, just as an idea. Emoti, nice to see that the whole band showed up. Excellent. So just tell me, who actually is in your band? Do you have like a full rhythm section? Do you have any horn players, singers? Like, just let me know, and maybe I'll have some ideas for them as well. But anyway, let's do this halftime feel, right? So get the bass going. And just kind of work, be like Miles and be sparse about it. take off. And somehow this camera got turned a bit. Let me see if I can straighten it out here. A little tricky, this one. If I kick it with my foot, it's a little unstable sometimes. All right, maybe that'll help. Okay, so I don't know if you have any comments about what I just played, but I can tell you that it was fairly fun for me. I haven't seen a comment actually in a while, so maybe you could write something and let me know you're still there. That would be cool. Oh, there we go. Sorry, the comments weren't refreshing. So Charlie says he wants to join the monthly session. Yeah, just go to the Jazz Mental channel and look up Jazz Piano Mastery. There's a search bar. Just go check that out. I'd love to have you. And let's see. Give him a break. He's new to the village. Give Charlie a break. Yeah, we don't mind comments. Just keep it to a minimum so everybody gets a chance. That would be nice. The comments on that playing was groovy, so cool. And Charlie says, I didn't mean to hog the show. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. I think in terms of the halftime feel, I mean, I haven't seen really a lot of questions about that. Does anybody want some guidance on actually what to play when you do stuff like that? Because to me, I think it's really important, especially in these types of keys. You could go to G if you want to and play the same type of thing. Let's go to the key of G major and do the same idea. 1625. I think it's, just the feel is really the important thing, and you really have to lay back on it. Hear the drums in your head, right? It's kind of important in this feel and style. Alan says, I don't know if I'm alone here, but I have quite a problem getting the left hand bass automated so I can concentrate on the right hand. Yeah, the only thing that I would say, it's definitely a challenge for most piano players. So this is not something that's unique to you, Alan. And I'm sure if some of the others want to agree, with him, and there's Don. And Don, yeah, you agree with him. It's a slow process when practicing the left hand. I think one of the things that I've always felt about the left hand is that it was just as important as the right. And just so you know, I'm not left-handed. But the reason why it's automatic, or what most people would think is automatic, I'm still thinking about it, but there are specific patterns that my left hand does that I don't have to think too much about. I would run 1-6-2-5 in as many keys as you can, just to kind of get the feel of it in different keys. Go to G. Then maybe go to a flat key, right? Go to E flat major. So it's a different feel, right? Right? It's like a different. Let's just play in E flat. I just have to start thinking about it. Right? That's what I would do. I would run 1-6-2-5 in as many keys as you can, even D flat, just to kind of get the feel of that. And just play it as many times as you need to play it, because eventually what will happen is the hand will find its way as it's working through the different keys of a tune. Now, Bye Blackbird, it's in one key and it doesn't really venture far from that at all. But there are a lot of tunes that do. I know that we worked on Body and Soul recently, which is in D flat, and it goes through a bunch of different keys. But the hands have to be comfortable with those keys. And I think that might partly answer Alan's question. It's just, where does the hand feel comfortable in a specific key making its way through the changes? Bye Blackbird is a great vehicle for this type of lesson and exploration, especially the spacing that Miles creates. Yeah, it's a nice comment. Rich says, Alan, Paul makes it all look easy. Just imagine scrolling through the pages in real time with your third hand. I wish I had a third hand. No, I was scrolling when there was a break in the music. That's the only way to do it. It's like when the hand isn't playing, you just got to like scroll the music. It's not that hard, actually. I try not to make things look easy, but in all honesty, they are. I mean, it's just, you do things enough times, you just kind of get good at it. I don't know what to say. Jerry here, I have turned up for the class in real time. Oh, good, Jerry. But the link is not working for me. So maybe you could email me the PDF. Why is the link not working? Did you actually fill out the form and not get the sheet music? Because if that's the case, then we've got a problem sending you emails from the system, or you might have put in a wrong email. Sometimes emails don't always make it to their destination, especially if you haven't been on the Jazz Mental site for a long time. So for example, and you should know this if you're ever doing marketing, I sent everybody an email yesterday. My list is about 9,000 people, but I only sent it to 3,300 of you. And that's because I don't send emails to people that haven't done anything in 90 days. So Jerry, if you haven't been on the website or downloaded anything or opened an email or clicked on an email from me in 90 days, then that might be the reason why you're not getting my emails, because I typically have this sort of sender reputation that I want to protect and keep my open rates and my click-through rates high. So we will get you the sheet music. Just, Jerry, I'll check in the system if you actually did it, and then I can email it afterwards. Anyway, I'm just letting everybody know what the technical stuff is about all of this. How would Ray Brown play a half bass line? I think what you mean by half bass line is halftime feel. And the answer is, I don't know enough about Ray Brown to say one way or the other what he would do, but I bet you it's pretty similar to what we're talking about. So to me, it's not about what Ray Brown did, because if you as a piano player spend a lot of time looking at what bass players are playing, they're doing a lot of stuff like this. They're doing... They're playing a lot more notes than is typically written. So they would play left-hand bass lines like we would play a solo. Like let's... that's a bass line, right? And they would do a lot of extra notes, but still hit the chord tones and the roots with the bass, and they would fill in lines. We don't need to worry about that because we've got a right hand. Bass players don't have a right hand, so they have to show off wherever they can. We use our right hand for that. So we're simple down here. And we're doing what the bass would do with our right hand. So imagine trying to do that while the left hand is doing this. And you're trying to think about both of those at the same time. Often what we'll do sometimes is we'll play them together like this. Things like that, where once in a while the hands come together. Play dissonantly, right? Hands together kind of thing. I wouldn't worry too much about what Ray Brown did. I don't actually have a perfect answer for that question other than we don't need to worry about that. So I hope that answers that. I mean, you keep throwing out these musicians, Dave McKenna, Ray Brown, and 1,000 other bass players. Niels Orsted Pedersen, who are some of my favorites. Steve Swallow. I don't know. I'm having a senior's moment. But you could throw out 1,000 names and the answer would still be the same. I'm a piano player. I'm not spending a lot of time listening to their bass lines. Maybe I should. I don't know. But we're more concerned with what the piano's role is in an ensemble. And our role is to make nice chords and play nice solos and back up other musicians. So that's what I'm thinking when I'm doing this, right? To me, this is like a way to comp. If Miles were playing like this, right? In the middle there, I would do something like... And then Miles would play... And then I'd play. And Miles would play. And I would respond. And you kind of filling in the spaces where the horn player is leading off, and at the same time you're making nice chords underneath them. So think about chords and notes at the same time. Alan, there's a suggestion for you. I would suggest playing the left hand only and singing lines. Yeah, you could do that. I would, at the same time you sang them, I would try to emanate the singing in your right hand as well. That would be a cool thing to do. Let's try that. Let's try singing. So left hand swing. I think I'm not the greatest singer, obviously. And you don't have to point that out. I already know. I think singing is cool, but we're piano players. So apply that to the piano and don't make it too complicated. At the beginning, you might just want to sing a scale, right? And do it again. Changes. Come down the scale. Sergio says, I like the way you harmonized. Could you briefly comment on that? Harmonized. My process of harmonization is never stray too far from whatever the chord structure is. So if our chord structure is here, 1, 6, 2, 5, I'm never going too far beyond that, except what I might do is figure out tritone substitutions. So 1 to 6, and then it goes to 2, and then I might go to flat 2. Which is the tritone substitution. But I could also use the tritone sub of 6 as well and go to flat 3. Right? And that's really my process for harmonization. It's just using tritone substitutions where available and then sticking in the odd 2-5 in front of a destination chord. So if the destination is E flat 7, I could put in an E half diminished 7th to an A7 to an E flat. Or I could put in a F half diminished 7th to B flat 7 to E flat 7. So either a half step above or a whole step above, making 2-5-1 suggestions in there. So when you mean reharmonize, what my fingers are doing is they're finding chords within that framework. So if we're doing like 1, 6, 2, 5, this is a reharmonization in my view. There's the flat 2, right, which is the tritone sub of C7. Now we're going to the 4 chord and then a 2-5-1 of G minor. Right? So thinking about A half diminished 7th to D7 to G minor. Whereas most people would just go to G minor, right? And they might use this passing chord and then get to G minor. But to me, it's 1, 4, 3, 6. 1, 4, 3, 6. Now we're in 2 to 6. 2 to 5. 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. And then the bridge normally starts on 1. E flat to D. But instead of doing that, do a 2-5-1 in front of the E flat that we just talked about. So start on A half diminished 7th, E7, D flat, half step above C. So that's my process. It's just adding a few extra 2/5s, and then finding tritone substitutions where necessary or where possible, and just really thinking about how those chords fit together. You really have to know your chords, though, to be able to do stuff like that. So, for example, a simple 1-6-2-5 in F would be this. Changes to that would be this. So your hands kind of figure out these little substitutions over time. Let's actually just play the entire thing, and we'll try to figure out some soloing that makes sense. I'll try to throw all of the ideas into this performance, and then I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about it. All right, let's do that. So I think you can see how much fun it can be once you assemble all of these concepts, starting with simple rhythms and simple melodies, expanding on them, and then finding ways to reharmonize melody notes as you go through. And for those of you that want to know what these types of things are, they're just dominant seventh chords with alterations. There's just, you figure out these alterations and extensions that really work on the piano. And obviously, I don't know if you saw this, but I think one of the biggest lessons in this whole thing today has been rhythm. So I want to thank you, everybody, for being here. I did want to sort of mention one more thing, and I'm going to throw this in the chat. If you want the backing track that I played with today and the full sheet music transcription, let me throw that in the chat along with a coupon code called Blackbird 40. And I know that a couple of you have already picked it up, so that's really cool. Thanks so much for doing that. It's either that or donations to the channel. That's how we survive. So for those of you that are thinking, this is really just all about making dough, every little bit goes to help us do what we do here, and we're really just trying to help. So whatever you can do, whatever contribution, I think purchasing things is a really good idea. And I just wanted to throw that out there and thank you in advance for considering it. We covered a lot of ground here today. I hope everybody had a good time. I'm definitely going to sign off at this particular moment unless there's any other questions or comments before we go. What do you mean the link doesn't work? The link doesn't work. Does it work? That's weird. Try that one more time. I'm just going to post it like this in the chat, and hopefully that link will work. If you click that, what happens? Yeah, the link works. Yep. This is where you end up. I'll show it. Oh, no, I can't do that. Okay. Anyway, it takes you to the website, and it'll kind of walk you through the process. Just use the coupon code Blackbird40. I appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out today. Amodi says, thank you, Paul. By the way, I just downloaded both the free sheet music and the bonus solo as well. Amodi, you're my man. Thank you. And, yeah, I hope everybody had a good time. I enjoyed playing this tune today because, it's such a simple tune and a great place to start. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. And we will see everybody next Saturday, same time, same place, same channel. Jazz Mentalists, I love you. You're my audience. You guys.